All right.
And right now it's Flash Friday.
Let's do it, man. How are you, Doug?
Hiatus. I'm well, sir. How are you? What do you got going on this week?
Usual suspects, man. I got some. I'm spreading the love across the Power Platform today.
All right. I have a fun week. I'm going to go quick because I know you got stuff on the Power Platform. So first, I just want to bring up, we had a great financial earnings quarter announcement, but more importantly, Microsoft, if you missed it a week ago, announced that we're going to go carbon negative by 2030. And by 2050, we're going to roll back our entire carbon emissions from the history of when the company was founded in 1975, including our supply chain impact.
That's
not
great.
Just like ours. And if you ever watch some of the videos, like the public announcement, I didn't know that in some cases you can get credit for like not cutting down a tree as part of being carbon neutral.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you think some of these terms, what they mean, and you don't. So I thought it was interesting. And we talked, our executives.
I was going to cut down a tree, and now I'm not.
Yeah, so I can claim carbon credit for that.
Okay.
I can also donate to someone else who's planting trees and claim credit for their trees, but the assumption is, that they're going to plant more trees. That's not always the case. It's interesting. So I didn't really know much all about that. So regardless of how you feel about it, it's pretty cool. So I thought that was a cool announcement. All right, so let's dig in on the tech side. So first up for me is kind of what's new in Microsoft Teams for January. And there were a couple of things that got announced on that. I don't know. Have you been playing around with read receipts at all? I turned them off. I don't like people spying on my reads.
I've got them on.
All right. I don't know. It says, but you should know about them, and based on your personal desire, turn them on or off.
Because honestly, here's my. I had a couple things that I used them for. One, I didn't care all that much, I guess, and I also use them in the way that perhaps I don't get back to someone right away, right? Yeah. Like I'm busy and I don't look at their message. That kind of lets them know, right, that I haven't even looked at their thing yet.
I think it's a work style thing, right? I think everybody should just think about what it means to you and what you want to do for it. If you have it turned off on your iMessage, you probably want to turn it off in Teams.
Right.
Yes,
that's a good way to think about it.
I just, okay. So the event around a colleague has joined your team. So you can do kind of a welcome to the team sort of thing. That was kind of interesting.
I missed that. What can you do when they join the team?
So it just basically gives you an alert within your feed so that you can respond to it and say welcome, so it doesn't get quite lost in the clutter, so to speak. Because a lot of times people will jump in and nobody knows they've just arrived, right?
That immediately makes you want to make a Power Automate flow.
Well, I obviously think that you could. Awesome. All right. Sorry. So then there's a lot of stuff this week. So voice admin role as a new workload in the Teams admin center. So honoring the traditional separation of duties, right, for people. Yeah. So good stuff. A couple of new devices. ThinkSmart, the Lenovo announced their ThinkSmart portfolio of Teams devices. So you're starting to see the momentum of Teams is crazy. You know that. I know that. The answer, we always joke, the answer around Microsoft is Teams, no matter what the question is, right? But the number of special purpose devices and people starting to line up around the workload is growing. And so I think it's interesting. Polycom announces their CCX range of Teams phones. So you can see the new sleek touch screen oriented. The momentum is away from physical buttons. So if you like mechanical buttons, I'm sorry.
I recoil at that. I just I don't want that on my desk. I don't know.
Okay, well, if you like the satisfaction of slamming down a physical device when your call is over, as opposed to a boop, then I have an answer for you.
Okay. It's great. I love the option. I don't know. It's not for me.
I know. There's a lot of people who are against them, but a lot of people end up with there are scenarios, common area phones, lobby phones, places you don't want to put full form compute, right? Yep. Now I might argue that you just would put a low end Android device with a headset option in a lot of places where you would put these kind of devices, but there still is a place for phones. Remember, you can get centralized power from them from Power over Ethernet, so they can survive runtimes to meet 911 requirements and all sorts of stuff. So if you look at the traditional communications estate, there's still definitively a reason to have both digital / analog and IP-based phone service. Probably not digital anymore, but analog and IP-based phone services, those have a place in the world, and we're just continuing the trend on top of that.
Love it.
All right, again, we talked about the Office 365 Pro Plus. What we have not talked about, which I was pretty excited about, put my security hat back on, my favorite hat to wear, is that Safe Links is now available in Teams, protecting from malicious URLs.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So yes, so now we've got the Office estate, and I'm going to carry this trend forward a little bit for my next component on top of things. The cloud communications APIs, which I used to actually when I wrote code for Reels, it was in UCMA, the Unified Communications Management APIs, the actual voice runner workloads, and doing voice XML. Normally, everyone accused me of writing Doug code, and that's true, which is code that has to be dedugged before it goes somewhere. But in this one, I used to write real code. And so the Unified Communications Management API were all these different like presence management and control. So you could like write a contact center solution or write a full integration, a rich voice interactive solution on top of it. Well, if you combine the graph and the presence graph APIs, the Azure cognitive and voice services and the rest of it, you now have an amazing portfolio of tooling. There's an awesome Ignite session on this stack of tooling and what you can do with it. And so the Cloud Comms APIs, the first generation of those old school APIs that were for Skype or Link on-prem server, are now available for developers to build solutions purely in a cloud metaphor.
That is great.
Yes, it's a really big deal. I'm going to build something with it to show people the power of this. I haven't quite decided what, or I'll have Jeff, who's a developer on my team, write one, because I'm probably better at the old school APIs than I am at these new, restaurant.
Give me a use case. Give me a use case here.
Okay, so if you go look out and you go search for convergent solutions, emergency dispatch assembler on YouTube. So you can geek out on that one, or team dispatch crew assembly. It's a video I wrote and a solution I wrote along with Nick Ramlow, who used to work on my old company with me. And what it did was, when power companies needed a crew for a down power line, they had these union rules where they had to assemble, they had to call out and assemble a team via a variety. So if you had a bunch of down power lines and your standby crews went out, and you had to call, according to union rules, all these different people to try and assemble more crews to meet your down power line requirement. That was a human thing with a clipboard and or a spreadsheet, and people would sit there.
Old school call tree style.
It had to be because of the extremely complicated business rules and all sorts of stuff. So we automated that. We sat with the union people, figured out the rulings that people wanted to do. And so basically you'd say, I have a new event. I need this kind of skilling with these number of crews, and it would build you an ad hoc IVR that would call out. Now, previously, those kind of solutions would be not available for someone at a reasonable price point. You could do that kind of stuff, but if you wanted to build a very custom workload-specific IVR, it would take you hundreds of thousands of dollars of platform and all the rest of the stuff, where with UCMA, it was nothing but pure coding.
Just to automate a clipboard call down list.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff like that where voice is still the primary modality, or you're blending voice with text and other modalities.
That's awesome.
And this allows you to do that interactively and build solutions. School lunch balance type solutions, like all those things. Now you can have those kind of solutions built at a price point that was previously just not viable because of the infrastructure you'd have to stand up to do it.
That's great.
All right. So anyway, I used to love that space. That was one of my favorite areas. So, all right. So Teams now for education has the new class insight stuff. If you're in education, I thought this was particularly cool. So you can see the average grades, on-time assignments, return time. Like you have this kind of nice classroom dashboard for things that are going on top of it. So I haven't dug into what its integration is on top of it, but there's the whole class insights thing, and it has a whole bunch of details on it. So if you're in education, I think you should check it out, because the more we provide simpler portals to this kind of data, the better off things are.
Love it.
Yeah.
And
all right.
We've really been building on the education stuff in Teams over the last couple of years. It's great to see that continued investment.
Yep, and for my Gov customers, please note that users in GCC High and DoD can now add a website tab in Teams. So again, it might seem like a basic thing, but to get some of these mechanics approved and governed properly for DoD High and Government Community Cloud and DoD, that's a big deal. And now in regular GCC, you can use third-party apps in Teams after going through, of course, the curation process.
All right, love it.
So I mean, it might seem like the but those are big motions for a
Well-
highly secured. It's one thing to do it in a commodity environment where we're subject to business rules.
Sure.
Entirely different thing to do it in a government.
Well, when you just stated, adding a website is now available, I'm like, whoa. I mean, that's been there since day one on Teams, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, but I immediately like, okay, this makes sense. That presents challenges in GCC environment. Right?
Yeah, it does. So you have to have some stuff. So, and I think some of the other things you've seen, help with that. Okay, so moving quickly through this one, we released compliance score. If you have not checked this out, you really, really, really should go check out compliance score. It essentially gives you the complete lens on how you're doing from a compliancy standpoint. So can we cut full screen on this one for a minute? So this is the UI behind it. I did fire it up in a separate session. So if we stay over there, I signed into one of my environments, and check out the specific actionability it gives you. You have to review this TLS deployment report. You have to use IRM for Exchange Online. You have to configure workstations for digital certificates, define cryptographic use, enabling versioning for document libraries, all the things that you need to do. And then it tells you the kind of actions. Are these technical actions? Are they business controls? And then you can drill in. So you can get all these different lenses on an overview, specific improvement actions with a prioritized score, a solution lens on it. So if you're the Azure Active Directory administrator and I would like to know what I can do in my solution to approach on top of it. Or if you want to take a more assessment approach to have like NIST 853, 171, or FedRAMP, like I put some of these ones into this environment. All right, so if you cut back, if you think about it, that's a pivot then, right? So there's recommendations oriented based on impact, there's solution focused ones, there's assessment or compliancy initiative focused. They all drive back because of a common control plane mapping. So as you shut down one that has a crossover, it shuts it down everywhere. Make sense?
Love it.
Yeah, so you think about, we have productivity, we have security, and now we have these compliance, we have the privacy, and we're helping you map all those control frameworks into our cloud solutions.
What's missing? Are we missing any dashboards?
Scores? Well, if we were, the data is there, and we have the lovely Power BI platform to build more, right?
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, these are starting to check off all the big blocks, right?
That's the goal. And we're continuing to evolve that solution and go forward. So you own it, start taking advanced use of it as quickly as you can on top of it. All right, well, continuing my smart screen thing and the security trend, we have now allow the combination of Microsoft Cloud App Security and Defender ATP to dynamically block unsanctioned applications no matter where the user is. So they have some stats in here about the number of cloud applications and how many gigs of data, but people put things places they're not supposed to because they either don't know or they're just busy. Agreed? I mean, that's, I'm used to putting it here. I should put it there. Well, now you can essentially create a dynamic rule. So if you look at this highlight in here, let's cut full screen to this for a brief moment. So if you say, for example, apps that do not comply with HIPAA and SOC 2 and that are not Microsoft OneDrive for Business or Dropbox. Alternately, you might want to block users from accessing specific social networks in case there was a high volume of data upload identified. So you can dynamically decide to block things based off of business rules. And this is not some kind of firewall block list integration, because the Defender ATP, Windows Defender ATP, is an agent on the machine that's going to follow the machine wherever it goes. So essentially, we're saying cloud management and control, in addition to cloud intelligence around application use, can do dynamic blocking and access controls of SaaS applications to enforce your business rules. That's a really big deal.
Yes, this is great.
Yep. And so it's a huge security move forward. If you are an E5, M365 E5 customer, you should start doing this immediately. So we moved from discovery and assessment and DLP policies to session control, blocking, and actionability around it. And so essentially what happens is if a user tries to go to one of them, they get the lovely message that says this website is blocked by your organization. You also get the signal intelligence and eventing from the places people are trying to go. So if you want to do reports on events, like who's actually trying to get to these things, so you can partner with them and figure out are they using the right solution, or do you need to make an exception or put a training control in place. So it doesn't always have to be about the bat. It can be about the hand to help people up, right? Yep. And so both things, this data can be used for both things.
Love it.
All right.
Hopefully the helping hand first and the bat second.
Well, I always say seek to understand and educate and inform first, and then bring the control. But some things just flat out can't be permitted if you have a regulatory requirement, right? So, all right. Well,
like you probably didn't have this level of insight and actionability. So this is great.
That's true. Yeah, so those are my big ones I wanted to focus on for the week. Check out all the new features and teams. Make sure you've turned on and opted in for it. The activation for the Defender ATP stuff is just a 3-step process. So I'll turn it back over to you. So if we cut to this full screen, all you're going to do is you're going to go into the Defender Security Center and you're going to turn on the Cloud App Signal intelligence so it crossover. This means Defender ATP signals will go over to Cloud App Security. So you're doing the security event integration, which you should do anyway. Next up, you're going to go into that same area and you're going to go ahead under advanced features and you're going to do custom network indicators. And that's going to basically trigger over the other half of the equation that we need around the signal access and what people are doing on top of it. And then in step 3, you're going to go ahead and check the block unsanctioned apps, which when MCAS, either by static or dynamic rule, marks it as unsanctioned, and that's it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It looks like it's easy to get going.
Yes, that would be very true. All right, sir, I'm done. Over to you.
Right on. So I have a couple, I'd say pretty big ones and a few kind of more small ones. So we'll kind of bounce back and forth between those. So this first one is been a long time coming and is a big deal if you need it, right? So we've talked about over the last couple years around the improvements in Power BI that we've made to connectivity and SAP and the varying different types of systems that they have. If you have SAP, it really rules your world, and it's kind of everything in and out of your business. And we're adding in a SAP ERP connector for Power Apps and for Power Automate. So this is awesome, and that's for either ECC or S4 on HANA. So and keep in mind that this is for both Power Apps and for Power Automate. So this is exciting, and it walks you through kind of some of the things that you'll need to install on your gateway, which of course you will need to be using to get connectivity there. But yeah, kind of walks you through some of the different ways that you can connect and the different things you can connect to, whether that's a BAPI or an RFC call, and how to connect to these things. So this is really exciting. I think a lot of people are going to be, this is the beginning of a long journey of kind of leveraging these tools for automation around and augmentative to the data that's inside of SAP. But this is really exciting and a big, I think this is a pretty big deal to add this to the Power Platform, Doug. Really exciting. So cool. All right, so this one is pretty straightforward, not quite as big of an announcement as the last one here, but the ability to embed stream videos and channels in Canvas apps. So really useful for training, instructional videos, those kinds of things. You guys know what Stream is good for, but now the embedding of that inside of Power Apps is here.
So I have a personal story around why I'm happy about this one, because I maintain a solution for the MTCs that I helped create, right?
Yes.
And so people get stuck on how to do it, and now I have this little preview page as to the outputs, and now I can put the stream video tile on the instruction video directly within the application and not crash them out of the app experience.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, and this is
I'm very excited about that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And this has become kind of a best practice inside Power BI to include your training right in the app. So yeah. I'm glad we're going to be doing that inside Power Apps as well.
Oh, I think it's great.
Awesome. All right, so I'll go through this one pretty quick, but this is exciting from if you're using the AI Builder to do predictions, whether out-of-box things with text and sentiment, or you're building your own kind of forms recognizer, which a lot of people are really starting to get excited about. We've made it a lot easier now to start to leverage those models, which is simply inside the Common Data Service, there's an action or an activity called Predict. Where you point to your model, and then it allows you to pass in your data through the dynamic content selector. So this is making it really super simple, and this is walking through using Forms Recognizer inside Power Automate to say, I have this new email arriving, perhaps in a shared inbox. I want to pass my contents in and then get back the extracted information from that model, just like I would do anything else inside Power Automate. So this not be any easier to do really advanced AI stuff inside your flows in Power Automate. So this is great, pretty cool. All right. So
have you had a chance to play with that one yet? I have not.
Yeah, I've done this with this guy right here is showing kind of more one out of the box, which is using sentiment. It's really couldn't be simpler. And walking through the Power Builder, maybe it's worth showing as a demo how easy it is to do like a forms recognizer.
I think it would be cool to do that. Maybe we can do it next week if you got time.
Sure. Yeah, because it's really just you need like 5 to 10 examples, and it's just click, 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 next, next, next to deploy one of these, and then automate you could do invoice processing or whatever. Really, really straightforward. Pretty easy. All right. So this one's exciting. Have you played much with the UI flows yet in Power Automate, Doug?
No, I have not. It's on my list. It's just a long list.
Well, for sure. And now is becoming a good time to start looking at it because, I mean, obviously when it first was announced, you could download it and install it and play with it. But like anything else that's just getting going, it's a little rough around the edges. But I can already see the maturity coming into the tool. So this month with the update to the UI flows, it's still very much preview. So don't start building production grade workflows on top of this yet. But I can really see the maturity around complexities, right? Because when you think about the complexities of interactions with UIs that were built for humans, that can be pretty difficult. So it's talking through some of those idiosyncrasies that you might not necessarily think about right away around launching other applications and dealing with, this is an example of a text box or a dropdown that actually has the same accessibility name. So that makes it difficult for the automation to figure out which box you're talking about unless you can get further hints around, well, I want the second one, not the first one. Right?
Yeah, and if you've ever done actual Windows GDI development or automation or control automation, like every little window has an H1, an ID, and a nested ID, and you're actually addressing these control IDs, and all the controls, depending on the library that the developer used, all come and present themselves as different. So you might see it as a drop-down, but it's not really a drop-down. It's like a dynamically painted or a custom rendered control. So this is hard. And I think we're doing, in my opinion, based on having a lot of history doing this, a pretty amazing progress.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say.
And we're building on those. So the companies and the tools that are built on top of UI automation windows are built up over terms of like, decade level type of work. So we're building on top of that knowledge and that core of UI automation.
And nobody knows the UI layer like the people who make it.
That's right. Which is us kind of. Right?
Yeah, that would be us, right? Yeah. So yeah.
So this is great. It kind of walks you through how to get your update and to your extension inside of hopefully Edge. And I see a lot of people, by the way, flocking to Edge. Just anecdotal, right? Totally anecdotal. I don't have data, but just looking at Twitter and things like that, people are really loving Edge now.
It's a great browser.
It's fantastic. You can see I'm still using the dev build here, but if GA is more your jam, then.
So I can tell you, and I did not encourage them in any way. 2 of my older children have started using it with no nagging from their father.
That's fascinating. So first there was even an awareness thing. They had to be aware, right, that was a thing. But
yeah, I mean they actually do have laptops for school, right? So there's that, right? Because we sort of advertised to it. But when the new update came out, and my youngest actually enjoys the seamless history and opening from phone to desktop and back for school.
Love it.
So I was like, wow.
That's exciting. Well, it's funny. My daughter came to me. She uses Edge on her iPad, and she's like, "Dad, did you know that there's a new Edge icon?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think I knew that." So, but she loves it. She loves it more than Safari. So it's great. Awesome. All right, so a couple Power BI things. I wasn't gonna call this one out, but then I remembered I was actually in a session with a customer, and we're talking through Power BI governance, right? And how do you manage your tenant and the types of settings that are available? And we actually had a customer figure out live that they had some sensitive data published publicly. So we helped them remediate that immediately and walk them through that. So I called this one out as hey, if you are a Power BI tenant admin, please go check your publish to web settings inside of your Power BI tenant that will govern who is able inside your organization to publish data to the public web. So super useful feature. A lot of really good use cases around it. Needs to be enabled judiciously, right? So this will we've kind of changed the experience, and that's rolling out this week as far as what those tenant settings are and how they look and how they work. So now's a really good time to go do a health checkup on your Power BI tenant settings and making sure that you have this set to something that's appropriate for your organization.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was kind of a fun one. That hadn't happened to me before, where literally the person in the room had published some things and wasn't quite aware of how that was being manifested. So it's worth checking. All right. Couple other things from a Power BI perspective, and then I'm wrapped here. We're launching for the new modern workspaces. So you should be, and by the way, if you don't have a plan for moving to modern workspaces yet, you should probably look at that. Really not a lot of reasons to not do that yet at this point, and we're eventually gonna kind of force you down that path. So definitely take a look at your strategy for modern workspaces. And one of the advantages that you're going to get here is the enhanced usage metrics and report metrics here, which aren't just around report usage, who's using it, how many times, what are the views, but around performance as well, which is really helpful because you'll be able to see some trending. Is my report becoming more onerous to use over time? Are people having a worse or better experience? And now you'll be able to kind of see those things. We're also enhancing the existing usage metrics around views and those kinds of things that were already there. We've taken another approach to how we build that metric, which is now really more accurate because we're using the same report view event that's occurring in the service rather than doing things on the client. So that'll give you more consistent metrics across how people are consuming your reports, regardless of their front end, right? So if they're on the mobile, if they're on Power BI embedded, or they're in the service, all the views are going to be a little more accurate and let's use the word precise at this point.
Nice.
Yeah, so definitely take a look at this. This is really cool. One of the other useful things about it is if you look at this guy, this is not a report that we're shipping out of box. This is an example of what you can build if you want to put something like Excel on top of your data and provide something a little more custom. So we're allowing you to get access to the data, right? About the data. So definitely take a look at the new data model and report around report usage metrics in the modern workspaces. All right, last thing here. For those, my peeps that are running Power BI report server, your multi-time-a-year happy day has come, and we're shipping the January update for report server, and of course that also comes along with the corresponding Power BI desktop, right? So these are always the things that have shipped in the service, but it's worth reviewing. So I know that you're going to be excited about exporting data from the visuals, as well as setting hyperlinks inside your matrices or tables. And I'll show.
By the way, I want to do one call out on that URL feature, the ability to make anything a URL. I have now used that about half a dozen times just since you told me about it.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
And it is so easy. You just pick a column and say, this one's a URL. It says, well, what's the origin URL? And then it turns it into a hyperlink and you're done.
Well, because to create actionable analytics, I mean, you have to be able to bounce out to things, right?
Yeah, but I'm
CRM system or whatever, and this makes it easy.
That was so easy. It was like, you just, when you're doing your column formatting in the table or whatever, you just say, well, this is a URL, and then it pops up a little, well, from where am I getting the URL? Yep. And it can even walk back across the linkage of the model. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not within that, which of course it can, but I was absolutely floored by how easy that was.
No, it's great. Yeah. So, and then the one that I love that's going to be really useful for a lot of people on the builder side of things is the enhanced data profiling that we shipped several months back in Power BI Desktop is now available to you for your report server version of your desktop. So, and one other one which is great, we introduced a few months back is the PBIDS, which is the Power BI basically data connection. So it's something that you can hand to your users that will automatically prompt for credentials to a particular data source, whether that's a SQL server or a SharePoint list or whatever. It's a really kind of user-friendly way to say, hey, if you're going to be commonly connecting to this data source, here's just an easy way to get connected without having to paste in a connection string or paste in a site URL. So we now support that for the on-prem version of Power BI Desktop as well. So go check that out, get updated, get excited, and that's all I've got for the week, Doug.
Well, we're at a perfect. We're at 10:59 Central U.S. It doesn't get much better than that. We'll see you all next week. Thanks to Emily for producing. Mr. Kidda, thanks for joining from St. Louis, and we'll see everybody next week. Everybody, I don't know, it's snowing in Minneapolis, so if you're here, drive safe.
I think we're gonna hit 60 on Sunday here, so sorry. Was that mean?
Well, no, I just have envy sometimes, right? Not all the time, but as I look out and see the snow coming down. All right, you all take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Be safe.